international space law to IP rights and ethics in artificial intelligence. He has published extensively, including the second edition of his notable book, Artificial Intelligence Ethics and International Law, as well as several handbooks and reports on AI policy and governance. Mr. Abhivardhan has represented his organizations in leading national and international forums such as the Observer Research Foundation, G20 Brazil, ETH, and the Commonwealth Legal Education Association, contributing significantly to discussions at the highest level on AI regulation and strategy. Through his dynamic leadership and academic rigor, he continues to champion an inclusive and forward-thinking approach to AI law and policy grounded in both global and Indian perspectives. We are privileged to have him here to share his insights on ethical usage of AI in research. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Abhivardhan.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so good morning all. I hope it's audible to everyone. I think that's the case. Yeah. So thanks for the elaborate introduction. It was humbling. Yes, I'm not a developer, not a data scientist. I'm not a senior solutions architect. I'm a lawyer, technically. I work in technology law because I really love about how technologies like AI, blockchain, not cryptocurrencies, but like genuine DLT, the genuine ledger, how these technologies really affect us, shape us, because you see, the market is the core aspect of any technology adoption, right? If you don't find an incentive as to why do you wish to go ahead with any technology, be it in defense, be it in nuclear sciences, be it in anything, you will not be able to just adopt them at all, right? So what am I discussing today? Of course, I'm discussing ethical use of AI in research. That was, of course, the thing, which is exactly, I am happy to discuss this today. I've developed this exclusively for this research colloquium since it's a specialized audience of scholars who are pursuing their doctorate. And it's a multidisciplinary audience. That's actually great because I was under the assumption it's just a medical audience, but it's not. It's like a very diverse audience, so that's lovely to know. Quickly, this is just our motto of our approach at IPLR, confirm that mind is destiny, knowledge is destiny. When you learn about things, it actually gives you a direction about how exactly could you work around things. They might work out, they might not work out, but they give you some instance of, let us say, having a leap of faith in doing innovation. So that's of course there. My quick introduction is obviously there. This just is about an archive we have in technology law, which is, we call it, we claim it humbly as India's biggest tech law archive. We really have it like 239 contributors who have been participating as of 5 years. And this is what we have done. Of course, you can find this framework using IPAC AI on Indo-Pacific.app. But that being said, this is a special acknowledgement since this is first, of course, for the colloquium, and it was a great invitation. I really appreciate that. So, what are we going to discuss today? In the morning, we had a power-packed session on longevity, right? And the discussion around use of AI, let us say machine learning algorithms. I'll not say AI algorithms, I'll say machine learning algorithms in that regard is interesting. So, before understanding ethics of research, of course, I'll quickly deep dive into the role of AI because I think that's a very critical aspect. I'll tell you why. When you are doing research, you will engage in academic research, but sometimes you might also engage in public-private partnerships or private engagements where you might be asked to consult or advise in a larger research project. So at times what happens is you need to know the role of AI in governance in a very simple way. Now for that you don't need an act of parliament to come and be passed by both the houses and then assented by the president. All you need is to understand how exactly AI is itself used in governance. This may sound boring, but turns out a lot of legal things are boring and they gotta be interesting. So I have tried to make it in a more infographic way. You know, as the great legend, who's a tax lawyer right now, King's Counsel, Harish Salve says, you got to be very brief and specific and candid about things. So it's going to be very brief. It's a 80-page document, but I'm not going to go through everything. I'm going to go through the infographic side, of course, and then I'm going to discuss some things. Then, of course, I'm going to discuss a little bit about legal and policy writing, but you can just look at it. And fourth is very important because these days reasoning models have become very interesting. So deeper research by Elon Musk's Grok. I don't know, OpenAI has so many models, O3 many, the name just is endless. The list is endless. And Anthropic has Claude reasoning. So all these tools are coming up, right? And the concern is if you're using them for anything, research, writing, diagnosing a problem, whatever, what should be the things you should be mindful of? Because I'm personally a user of large reasoning models. I'm also a fellow at Perplexity, like a business fellow, so I also attend their sessions, I also understand what they're doing, and they're doing some interesting work as a product company. So of course, if large reasoning models are being used, are they effective? Because there are 3 research papers which show that they are not, but you can still use them. So of course about that. And then of course, a few portions like AI framework fatigue. This is a quick take through, not like a detailed one. Of course, the major report is IPLR IG013. You can find it on Indo-Pacific.app. What's the idea? So, okay, people who are in the medical side know that the Indian Council of Medical Research came up with an AI ethics framework in 2023, which is about use of AI in hospitals, use of AI in certain things, right? Certain contexts, certain research practices. So it's like a lot of frameworks keep piling up, right? This year itself, total 5 AI policy related documents came in, creating a lot of anxiety for businesses, researchers, students, as well as people who are in the government, because people in the government have a capacity building issue, right? We are a big country, we are still to improve, we are improving, things are happening, but it takes time. This is why we have a Karma Yogi Bharat scheme under the ministry, the Department of Planning, under the cabinet. And then of course workflow accountability, and I will discuss about contracts a little bit because it's very important. I'll give you an example. A case is going on right now in the Punjab and Haryana High Court. You know what the case is about? So just a quick question, just a yes or no thing, if you can raise your hand. How many of you know about Turnitin? Oh, lovely, a lot of you do. Okay. Now the Turnitin of 2019, to the extent I know, did not have to use generative AI because generative AI, which is based on transformers, did not evolve. They came in when 2023, when GPT 3.5 came in, correct? Now, how does Turnitin work? Turnitin works on a very basic concept. It partners with publishers like Elsevier, etc., and says, okay, boss, you have these publications, we will go through these publications, and based on them, we will actually come up with a flag rate, how much similar it is, and contextual, right? And of course, Turnitin has improved in the last 6 years, but I am referring to the 2019 version for a reason, because the new ones which have come up, AI-based flag checkers, mind you the language, AI-based flag checkers, they are separate from the Turnitin one. The Turnitin also uses algorithms, but not the same way as generative AI, because generative AI creates something new. It's a new output, right? You create something new, as opposed to something in advertising or SEO, which is like just processing the original data. So of course, I'll discuss a little bit about workflow accountability because I think that matters for a larger audience. And of course, therefore, market hype, therefore AI hype. This is a large problem right now that a lot of startups, a lot of so-called ventures are coming up with AI products. 5 to 10 solutions within 6 months, but they are bloating, they're not working out, there is lack of investor confidence, government also doesn't know what's happening, and that's creating problems. I mean, that has already created problems in the US, in India it's also happening, just not that much reported. So of course, from a competition law point of view, I've made it very simple, like what should researchers know? And of course, the last part will be, and ninth is just bibliography, just some readings we have collected from our end as a firm, and also some third-party readings like some books by Roger Spitz, Dr. Gary Marcus, and a lot of interesting people in tech and business. You can read them. But last part will be AI use justification and contracts, like what kind of clauses are important for you to know. Okay, so the first part is role of AI 101. So what is AI? I mean, of course, we know that when we say AI, the way we define is it's a system that can perform certain automated tasks in a particular way. We call it intelligence because it's an umbrella term, but of course it is not necessarily intelligence all the time. It is computation based. It depends how it exactly works. But of course we can say that it is, capable of performing certain tasks in a certain environment based on certain parameters. So these are some definitions. AI agents, AI anxiety. What is an AI agent? Very different from an AI workflow. An AI workflow, most of you know, if you're using API-based access of these large language models like ChatGPT, based on, or Sonar by Perplexity, or Grok 3, which is a brilliant model by the way, you can actually create workflows which could actually help you in your work. This could be product-based, somebody selling a product, or you are creating on your own based on the token access and the kind of resources you have, or you're just using GPUs, which is another thing under the India AI mission. And obviously automation, which happens even in factories. You have robotics, which has been evolving for the last 50 years, right? 5 decades and more even. Some more terms: AI hype cycle, framework fatigue, and of course you can look at the glossary. But let's get on the main part. What is AI? So as I said, it's an umbrella concept, right? And please let me know whenever the time is elapsing, okay? Like 5 minutes long. Yeah, thank you. Now, in multiple legislations, I don't need to name them: AI Act, some Canada AI legislation, Election Commission of India guidelines, Digital India Act, PPT, not like an official bill. All of these documents and ethics manuals like ISO standards on knowledge management, cybersecurity, and AI, you'll find that AI is considered either as something about a class of technology involving ML, and the reason I'm saying ML, I'm not saying AI, because it's an umbrella term. It could be like you're involving hardware automation plus software-based work, and they're mixing it up and saying, you know what, it's powered by AI. So we need to know this distinction. Now, what happens is a lot of people who are into research might not be into AI, right? A lot of you might not be into AI, but you wish to use AI. It could be helping you. It could be making things better, right? So you need to know this. Of course, then we have language models, recommendation algorithms, and interesting part. Recommendation algorithms is the basis. It helps a lot because, of course, natural language processing is the main field of language models. And of course, that's why we have put it in asterisk, double quotes, agents, because these are like high-level workflows, and it depends if they work or not. Of course, how can you classify? That's a very important question. First is, of course, technological features. What kind of technological components are you using? Why do you need them? And that justifies a lot. But then, sometimes it could be also that commercial reasons. For example, okay, most of you must have used ChatGPT, but I have a question. Have you used ChatGPT or Grok by any chance? Please raise your hands. You have. By any chance, there's a tiny line beneath the chatbot's box where you type. They used to write this thing, free research preview. Has anyone noticed that? Please raise your hands. Could you? You have. Interestingly, what happens is that when you say free research preview or paid research preview, like a subscription or whatever, it means that it's not a product. Now in India, we don't have proper product liability understanding. We just have a consumer authority, and of course we take action, and we have consumer rights under definitions clause, not even like a full-fledged section. So what happens is it's not a product. It's like a freemium thing, or it depends. So that's why you also need to know if it's an AI product or if it's an AI tool. That's something which is very important because liability starts from there only. And ethical questions will also come in because contracts, bylaws, all these end user agreements, right? Then of course, a little bit about concept. Is it about your legal rights, or is it about a beneficiary, or is it about the use of an actor involved? Very fundamental question, but of course a bit abstract, but I'll just put it. And the last one is risk. Again, in risk, you can easily do it. There's a very interesting work by a company called Harmonic. You can find them on LinkedIn. Lovely company. They came up with a research talking about how employees of a company, not one company but multiple companies, they use multiple AI tools, okay? But they don't use the ones provided by their employer. They create shadow accounts individually and go to Grok, Perplexity, whatever it is, okay? And they use it. You know the fun part? They use it desperately, and a lot of risky problems start at the level of data protection and cybersecurity. Just putting up some private data, sensitive information, or you're just participating in the workflow, you don't know where the data is going, or how exactly is it processing your thing, because lack of explainability sometimes at a business level. So of course, risks never go away. And of course, IP rights, which is copyright related problems. We have all seen the Ghibli episode. So so how many know that OpenAI released a model which can create Ghibli-like images? Raise your hands. A lot of you. So of course, it turns out that you actually can process back into real life images. That's a problem. So that's a risk. Therefore, risk classification. And then of course there's something called intended purpose, which means that you need to have something called an intended or specified purpose. That is a legal definition understanding. I have not mentioned laws because there are too many frameworks, and I don't think you should be swarmed into that overload. So I've mentioned which countries have done it yet: Europe, Canada, US, Japan, China, and United Kingdom in their draft law. But the interesting part is this is the definition, right? What is the technology basis, as I discussed before in the above slide, and business model basis, or maybe risk exposure. In healthcare, for example, when using certain form of sensitive information, there is a definite chance of risk exposure, because if you're closing a project, there will be a lot of wasteful data or wasteful resource stuff which you need to dump around so that nobody can unethically access it and then misuse it. It always will remain a concern because you will actually handle a lot of data sets, like our previous speaker, who is a professor at ISU Bengaluru, he said it very right, that he said that per person you have 2.5 million or something like that data which you're collecting to find out the clocks, the age aspect of organs, right? Now you're collecting so much data. If you're doing that, of course you need to have some intended purpose, so you need to know that. And this is like the most basic thing about AI and law, and I think this needs to be known because this is becoming a norm across the world. In India it will also come, but it will happen on its own. Policy processes are very hard in this country, and that's fine. It's a democracy. So, quickly about AI in public governance, there are 5 ways that it can happen. 1, AI is a subject matter of law. We are regulating AI as a technology or a product or a service. Second way is third-party systems. Governments rely on third-party systems for public governance tasks. It doesn't need to be a public-private partnership. It just is that you're using the tool, you're issuing a tender, you're paying for it as government, and of course it can be possible. Like for example, Meta is proposing to the Maharashtra government and the Andhra government, if you have read the news. Third one is AI in governance, which is interesting, embedded AI, like India Stack plus AI, Aadhaar plus AI, or any other sensitive data or any other non-sensitive, non-personal data, but sometimes effective for certain work you can use. And last one, which is the most hilarious one, I've discussed about flag tools recently, and most of you raised hands about Turnitin, fourth party AI, which is to say you're using these flag tools, AI based, but you can't justify why are you using these tools. That's actually a court case going on in the Punjab High Court. Correct. So that's there for you. And of course, a quick preview, diagram 6 gives a sense, it's governed by practice and policies, or it's a preview based tool, because I told you at that time when a lot of you raised hands about preview tool, ChatGPT was not a product. So product liability laws don't apply directly, but still there is some liability or accountability problem, right? Then another example, government agency partners with the private entity, contractual relationship is there or tender is there. You use it within digital public infrastructure like Aadhaar, etc., or something else. Or sometimes you don't use DPI, who knows? AI in governance, you integrate it, and of course AI in public-private partnership. And the last one is the interesting one, which I think researchers should know, because this will apply even in private side, which is to say universities and research institutions, think tanks, wherever you go. Now this is for private. Same concept, same formulations, but a little bit of a twist. When you use it in formal organization policies, are you justifying it or not? So that's there. In the case of researchers, it is a bit interesting, so I've made it a bit more granular. Sometimes you use AI for interdisciplinary work. Like, for example, I believe this is an interdisciplinary colloquium. I come from law, the previous speaker was from the field of science, and other speakers are from different fields, correct? So we have interdisciplinary engagement in some way or the other. So therefore, if you use, for example, AI in interdisciplinary work as a subject matter, which we can say this colloquium is also, of course, you can think about the role itself and what could be cost. Then, of course, class of technology product service, I told you about ChatGPT and the free research preview clause, and therefore automation, augmenting some tasks, improving and visualizing, and I'm getting on that part because this is something important for workflow accountability. And therefore ethics, the 5 things which always happen, I'll be very quick on this because I really wish to discuss the contract guidelines and workflow accountability. I think that matters a lot for research audiences. So, this is like a very simple example. Suppose you deploy a model you don't have version control. Version 1, version 1.1, version 1.2. You can't go to version 1.2 because you don't have version controlling. So if something happens and you have just done basic documentation but you don't have deployment gates, maybe you will be in a situation which could be problematic for an end user, correct? Who's using it if you're building such a tool. So if you have multiple versions running but you don't have an audit trail and how you can control the versions, maybe it's an ethics of AI issue because you are developing an AI model, right? Another way, we can say rushing fix. It's the same version of our AI model, language model, recommendations, algorithm. And it is same version, the repository is there, but their deployment standards are not clear. So if that is also not there, it's a rush way, it's a hasty way to fix things around, right? So of course, that is also an ethics issue which comes in. And I'm not talking about laws, by the way. There is no law governing AI right now. The only thing which we have is rather artificial juridical person, which is defined in the Data Protection Act passed by the parliament, nothing else. And even that law is not enforceable right now, so we can chill around for a little while. I'm just kidding, but anyways. And of course, then proper solution approach. You can involve machine learning operations like you do DevOps. People who are developers, people who are into building apps, they can understand this, but of course this is one of the way. And this is ethics of AI, some basic concepts like what is fairness and non-discrimination, transparency and explainability. But I think we'll discuss that. Privacy is also very important in the health side when you go. The problem which a lot of firms face is that when you're involving data and you're involving algorithms, in what specific context does it work? For example, data is stored in Belgium, but the model is hosted by people in India, and the GPUs are in India. Now, what you are facing is basically you're getting a situation of a cross-border transaction. So, privacy and data protection becomes important because in a specific governance chain, it's a complicated problem. Therefore, privacy and data protection, beneficials and non-beneficials. And therefore this, I'm just skipping this one because we have time problems. These are like basic principles you should know as researchers. You can look at it later, which is like principles of legal writing, how you should write, why you should write. You know, we at my firm and even I used to, because I've published a lot, humbly speaking, in this field, my field. And I used to write like 10K words, 15K words, right? So long, fine. Sometimes if it is critical research which involves that much long writing, it's fine. For thesis, it makes sense. For me, obviously, academic research. But if you're not able to explain ideas in a simple way, then of course, it's an issue because in research today, the problem is while a lot of research papers contributes to a lot of electronic applications, nuclear research and whatnot, and even in health, people just have no time to read, right? That's such a dilemma, which is why you use these AI tools, right? You just put them into ChatGPT or Perplexity and then you try to get an output, right? By the way, Claude is interesting to work around if you really wish to, document and understand from a document that you've uploaded, provided it does not have any personal data. And of course, these are the principles. I'll skip this one because this had to be mentioned, but now this is a little bit I'll focus on. So when you use reasoning models, there is some research which is published, you can find in the further readings part, the last part. It's actually found that the reasoning models give you a sense of human perception. Now that's a very interesting issue. I'll tell you why. So a lot of generative AI, okay, a quick question. How many, I know people have used ChatGPT, how many have used Elon Musk's Grok on Twitter? A lot of you? Okay, then a very quick follow-up question. Have you realized that Grok is very provocative and open in its own way? You don't need to say abusive, but provocative. How many agree? If you can raise your hand. Like Grok is more provocative as assumed to ChatGPT, right? Please raise your hand if you can. Yeah, some of you realize that. The reason is that Grok does not hold any barriers, it does not hold any filters to an extent. But Grok is also good because it's a perception game. you create a good perception around human to AI interaction. You don't have time. So what will happen is you will be just affected by, okay, fine, this is like understanding my perception. So it's gathering data in a more nuanced or interesting way, which is interesting how it is. But there's a concept we call it manufacturing of consent. But still, it depends. Because after using 5 to 7 times such models, you realize that, oh, these models are creating a perception like, let me think about it, thinking about it. You know, it uses these terms. You will find that in Perplexity also. If you use Perplexity Pro, you'll actually realize that. And yeah, one more thing it does. You must have seen this thing of chain of thought reasoning, right? Like it gives you these many stages, 5 to 10 stages and steps that, okay, fine, these are the steps. We are thinking in this way. These are the search results. This is what we have found. This is what we are processing. So it makes you feel as a consumer, which is an excellent product strategy, that, oh, this AI system is thinking like a human being, the reasoning model, right? And you see what the terminology it is, reasoning model. But it's not a reasoning model necessarily because it's not that good, right? And these issues still pertain. So always understand how do you do it, but always be wary, because when you're using these tools, they are perceptive and deceptive in their own way. So use them, but at your own risk in a way which is defendable and at the same time useful for you. Or else you are stuck in a perception game and these models will just keep giving you a lot of things which are not factual enough. Sometimes they also manufacture the URLs. Yes, they do. That was an issue with Microsoft Copilot, but that issue has been resolved long back, like months back. Now, framework fatigue. This is the main part which I really wish to discuss, and of course contract part. Now what happens is that you come up with a lot of frameworks. Okay, as a researcher, you have this anxiety that, oh, so many guidelines are there. Some foundation is coming up with AI ethics guidelines, some government is coming up with something, and too many things are piled up. Now, of course, a commercial lawyer who is helping you or somebody in the compliance side in a specific domain will help you. But as someone who's not into this and just wants to do research, or somebody who's a developer who just wants to build an AI tool, you might not care a lot about these frameworks, right? Because of course, at a point of time, at a threshold, you will just be stuck. And that's a problem with a lot of product managers actually are facing. So the reason I said IPL or IG 013, because this was a part of a workshop I did for them. So I'm just showing some of the parts, like what happens in paralysis. Too many regulations make no sense. So you focus on outcomes, you create adaptable structures which are about accountability, which I'll come on with the contract side comes in. Second is, of course, also a very huge issue in India. For example, okay, what happens is that when you are having AI safety incidents, I'll give you a quick story. I think it's a story in the US. So what happened is that there's a banking chatbot. Okay, quick question. Has anyone used AI-based banking chatbots from the mainstream commercial banks? Please raise your hands. AI-based banking chatbots, HDFC, ICICI, whatever, SBI, have you? Okay, some people have, interesting. Now what happens in the US is, somebody wants to get some information of their own customer account, savings account, and the application starts abusing about their HR. And the customer is astounded. It is reported in the media because he posts on social media, it is verified later. You know what happens? Sometimes hallucination doesn't work around because it is not documented as to how would it fail even in a closed-ended environment. What's happened with these GPT type tools is, there is nothing wrong to use them. But when you don't have documentation about safety incidents, these issues will keep happening, the market will remain uninformed, the investors will remain uninformed, and it will create a lot of confusion. Because then you are stuck in a loop. You don't know what the market is thinking about. You don't know what will be the problems. You will just know, okay, somebody has reported the media and the government has come up with random guidelines. Because see, even the government gets anxious, right? Like the whole controversy with Gemini that happened last time, the same issue. The government got anxious, the election commission got anxious because they were elections. And they're right, they're not wrong entirely. But again, the approach was not helpful. Therefore, one needs to know. You can do it or somebody else has to do it, but it's better when you're doing research, please document the incidents, the failures. What happened, what's the timestamp, when did it happen, why did it happen? At least as per your observation. Yeah, 10 minutes, yeah. Then, of course, responsible AI is a bit overrated. So, of course, when these things happen, as I told you, too many frameworks, too many things. Okay, I told you that 5 to 6 AI policy documents have come out, right? Now let me tell you what they are. In India, not talking about the world. World is like 300. So we can't go through every single framework, because if we go through, sometimes they make sense, sometimes they don't. In India, you have the Election Commission guidelines on deepfakes, which is basically your image and your voice is converted into something artificial, and it is then shared around. You have Economic Survey of India before the budget was released, which actually discusses about AI and the future of work. You have the data protection rules, which refer a little bit about automation, but not that large. So I will say DPDPA, which I said artificial juridical person and nothing else. You have AI governance guidelines documentation report by India AI. How many frameworks? 4, 5? Correct. Now, these are in their own tangent, on their own direction. One is going left, one is going right, one is going upwards, one is going south. It's confusing, right? And sometimes it's frustrating. So always focus on the basic ideas, like I showed in the previous ones, and I really wish to focus on other aspects. Focus on transparency, privacy, these basic ideas. Because these basic ideas are not going away. You know why? Because everywhere in the world, you will have data protection laws. In India, it will be enforced very soon, in 6 months, hopefully. But let us see. Data protection law, cyber security law, intellectual property law. These things are never going away with respect to AI. Even if certain company people say, oh, let's delete all IP law, that's not going to happen. So define your own standards to an extent. Use common sense, what makes sense. Then try to implement them and see if they have worked. Within weeks, you will come to know. Depends on the nature of your research project, how big it is, right? Some mandatory disclosure is needed. Use precise language. Like if you're using AI, please be very transparent. What exactly is the use in the workflow? Don't just say AI-based rejuvenation, some other godliness. Please don't say that. It doesn't help, because it also misleads people who are supporting the project, and also misleads your co-researchers, right? Paralysis 4, which is also about awareness becomes a policy distraction, the same thing which I said, but in a larger enhanced way. Fragmentation is also a thing, because what happens with companies is a lot of consumer-based AI companies, they just don't provide information about AI systems in terms of what problems are they creating. Because see, a lot of times it's their trade secret problem, but some of it you have to tell in public interest, because you need to know. Like in the B2C side, you use these chatbots for certain advice or maybe certain information, or you use it in the search market. Maybe some transparency is needed. Maybe in the advertising side it is needed. For example, in case of children, in case of women, you come up with the content which is not helpful. How is it doing? Why the recommendation algorithm is not working properly? Not just generative AI. They just don't. So lack of benchmarking is there. Because see, unlike, okay, how many of you know about the institution behind the Large Hadron Collider? Please raise your hands. Large Hadron Collider. Some of you, right? So is it a company or is it, okay, no, I'm not asked that. It's an international institution led by researchers, if I'm right. If you know about Large Hadron Collider, please, if anyone can raise hands. Yeah. So now the problem is we don't have that kind of an institution in the world right now for AI. We don't have a CERN, we don't have that. And that creates a problem. You don't have neutral researchers from all across the world, China, India, US, Singapore, who are together in a neutral institution. You have AAAI, of course, in the US. You have ISO, you have IEEE. But beyond that, you don't have, right? So you don't have those kind of research institutions which are neutral enough to come up with the research information. Papers have been published, 100%, but again, vested interest, sometimes the papers are fake. At times what happens in biology, etc., some Springer journal article came in, if you have read the news, they use GenAI to make the internal organ system of a rat or some animal, okay? And they did not even cross-check it, the peer reviewer approved it and it got published. And then it was retracted because turns out the text was showing, you know, that it says in ChatGPT, oh, here's the response, then colon, and then it types it out. So people did not even cross-check while copy-pasting the content from AI tools. That's not the way you do research writing, right? So that's there. This is also a thing, as I told you about investor confidence. A lot of times priorities are multifaceted, so I'll just skip this one a bit. Then of course workflow accountability. Now this is interesting. So what happens is that a lot of times it's about accountability. It starts with transparency and integration. So one should always disclose the use of these tools. I think this is fundamental. You're using it for copy editing, copy pasting a content, you need to make it clear that you have used it. If you're good in editorial skills, that you have just made so many amendments to the text, then you can claim that it is original content, legally speaking, from a copyright law angle. Because see, I'll tell you a secret, quick secret, and developers agree with it. Using generative AI to track plagiarism in research is sometimes impossible, because in research, the kind of language that you write is very nuanced. In marketing and media, it is easy, very easy. Because it's very general language, simple language. So there's a way, there's a pattern to do it, and it's very specific. But in research, it's impossible. If you are good in writing, that's what I told to lawyers and law students also, because I mentor them in these AI and law internships. I tell them that, boss, you can use these AI tools. But if you're not good in editorial skills, you are not good in basic English grammar, or it is whatever the language is. Right now we have seen in English more, not in other languages like Hindi, Telugu, Tamil a lot, because we of course don't publish a lot of papers in regional languages in India. English we do, unlike China and others. You can do that. But you can see the relationship, right? These AI tools are giving you outputs, but you need to fix that by good editorial skills, which means that human skills are not going away. And quickly, this is the one which I was referring. Researcher 1, Researcher 2, Researcher 3, a concept of shared accountability. Therefore, these guidelines come up. But I'll just quickly show the mind maps. There's something about vendor agreements, but I'll not discuss that. You can read it later, due diligence and responsibility models. Now, this is something which is very important about AI hype. I said that, a lot of things about AI are hyped up. So, avoid one thing which is tech solutionism, which I'll really talk about. That you apply AI as a solution, but when you apply it as a solution, don't think that it's a permanent solution. Think about aspects of maintenance. Think about version control. What's the next version? What's the problem with it? I think a lot of times, even in government and private sector, we think, okay, fine, this AI tool is going to revolutionize everything, but it doesn't help out. So this needs to be seen in that case. That if you're using this, don't use it as a means for tech solutionism alone. Therefore, of course, disinformation and information literacy. One quick part about Article 4, which is skill erosion. Never think that if AI tool is coming up, it will replace you. It can't. Because the problem is, a quick example, in law firms and chambers, there's one thing happening. Associates have been taught that if you can not do menial tasks like accounting and all for them, you can be replaced by AI. Turns out that's not exactly how a law associate works. Think about it, how will a research associate work around? It takes years to do some documentation, like in the last session, the first one. It takes years to document certain things. Longevity side, psychology, a lot of studies take years, right? And you need funding for that, support for that. So you need to justify that skill erosion can't be done just because an AI has come in and it will quote unquote replace you. Maybe it can help you in a workflow. And therefore these things, and the last one I just should quickly show you, which is contracts. As I said in the beginning, I discussed about scope, application and all. This is what happens. Data handling. Always be clear about ownership and control. Who owns the data? You as the researcher, institution, who? Always discuss these things, right? I think this will matter a lot. Then in a reporting, but the last one which I'll quickly emphasize in 1 minute is ADR. So for example, what happens is that a lot of times when research projects are done through contracts, always sign a contract properly, you can't go to court all the time. So use mediation as a method or negotiation as a method. Negotiation is not properly recognized that much in Indian law, but of course mediation is important. So you can use affordable mediation as a way to quickly resolve a dispute if you feel that there is actually a dispute. So that of course I'll quickly done. So yeah, these are the further readings. And I believe since we are already out of time, I think questions will be addressed in the lunchtime. Yeah, perhaps once all the sessions are over. So these are certain publications, but of course you can go to IPAC, you can go to Indo-Pacific.app, you can search IPAC space AI. You'll actually find this publication, and these are some publications with hyperlinks, you can download them. And yeah, that's a quote from a great economist, Karthik Muralidharan, about free market. And with this, I conclude. Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm sorry for taking it.
Thank you, Mr. Abhivardhan, for your insightful and thought-provoking session. Now, as a token of our gratitude, we would like to invite Dr. Vasudha Devi ma'am, our pillar of support, to present the token of appreciation to Mr. Abhivardhan. Please, ma'am. Good round of applause for Mr. Abhivardhan, please.